All right, let's see. We're going to welcome back to a special edition of Boundaries and Brotherhood. I'm your host, Gordon Watt.
We're not committing any crimes, guys.
But today we got a special day because we're going to do our breakdown. I mean, a small breakdown of what beyond the alpha and beta, cultivating true confidence through reciprocal value. If you're watching this live on TikTok, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Facebook, leave us a comment. I'll get the comments going right here. The chat, you can get some of your messages put up on screen live and get them answered even live real time. But I want to say, Doc, how you been, Doc?
It's been a good week. I've gotten a lot of stuff done off my plate. Finished a big project. Well, it's not a project, just catching up on backlog work. Finished that yesterday, so it's a massive relief. And so I'm great. I'm good. Yeah, I can't complain.
All right. If you guys watching this on TikTok, please like, follow, subscribe, and dig this. Share the subscription or the follow button to somebody you think might be interested in this type of content, because we're gonna go into this really fast, really intercept. The title of today's show is The Alpha and the Beta. Doc, can you explain from a therapy standpoint, from your professional standpoint, what that means, how it works out, and what we're going to be going into with the Netflix documentary, The Manosphere? So let me get set up here, brother.
The idea of the whole alpha, beta, it's based off of like a personality type. And, so essentially they're saying that men have several different there's seven different types of men, right? And the two most common ones that I brought up are alpha and beta. And in the layman's terms, alpha means dominant, in charge, strong, powerful, and beta means weak, pathetic, passive, soft. Essentially, if you want to be a real man, you have to become an alpha. And if you're not an alpha and you're a beta, then you're weak. Women run over you. You don't get any play.
Yeah, I was like, damn, this sounds like
weak. So if I could sum it up, alpha good, beta bad. That's how it's been described in culture, right? And so when we talk about that, when we go into it a little bit more, we'll talk more about that, break that down, kind of look at how those personality types don't really exist in isolation, and see where it comes from, and also what to do if you're in those cycles, right?
I mean, the title says, you got a lot of stuff going on, because you could be in a situation where you're tired of chasing metrics like the income, the physique, the 6'2", the high value. But what truly elevates the man is how you portray yourself and confidence. And that's what Boundaries and Brotherhood is all about, because you have to fulfill your own fulfillment and purpose to figure that out. Now, in the documentary with Netflix and the Manosphere, you have, like me and Doc were discussing earlier, you have a need and people need direction, and they just fulfill the need in that business. Because, you might be tired of the rat race. You might be tired of unfulfilled external success. You might be looking for desire or genuine respect from your partner, or you're tired of just a transactional stuff. It was really interesting because I agreed with a lot of different stuff about how they're doing about it, or does society need these type of people to have the direction for men that's filling that gap, right? Doc was talking about it earlier, like, is it us as society, is it men, or is it young men that just don't have that guidance at home, because single family home, break up homes, like I've come from one. So I know the exact moment where you try to figure out being a man yourself, but you don't have direction, and you're also ashamed to ask your grandmother, right? So now you're contemplating with yourself, how is that propel trauma or problems in adulthood?
I think it's almost like trying to put a Band-Aid on an affected wound, right? So the whole idea of, again, being a man through the manosphere is you get a lot of women, you make a lot of money, and you have a presence, a physical presence, right? So muscular and things along those lines. And so the idea is, they don't say it overtly, but the idea is that if you have that stuff, that's where your value comes from, right? your ability to generate income, your ability to sleep with a lot of women, your ability to look a certain way, right? And if you were to take any of those things, minus the getting a lot of women, right? But being able to make a lot of money, right? You know, it's not necessarily, it's not a hard thing to do, but it does take work and it does take effort. It does take drive and ambition. Those things in themselves are not bad, right? You know, being able to take care of your body, you know, yeah, looking good and being muscular and being in shape and being healthy, yeah, that's a good thing, you know. But now when you tie it to your value, right, now that's where the problem comes in. You tie these things to your value, and because you don't understand your own worth, and you think that I have to know. Now, that was one of the things they were talking about, like how a man has to go create value, which is, again, on the surface, it's true, right? You do have to go create value. However, that's not the intrinsic value. That's already there. The problem is, Gordon, what you were talking about, we come from these traumatic places, right? Fatherless homes, abusive homes, neglectful homes, and we don't have any value or worth. And now someone's saying that if you do these things and meet this criteria, that will fill that gap. That will fill that hole. That will finally make you a man. That will finally make you worthwhile. That will finally give you the value you've always desired. And that's the problem, because it doesn't. So you'll make all the money, you'll sleep with 10 women, 20 women, 30 women, and you still will feel empty on the inside. Like, but they told me this is going to work. You got the six-pack abs, you got the big chest, you got the big back, you got the big legs. You can walk around with your shirt off at all times, but you still feel empty at the end of the day. You get a lot of attraction, you know, all those things. And the crazy part is, guess what? You still feel empty on the inside. So that's where the problem comes in. The problem comes in where you think those things that they're preaching give you value, and they don't. That's the problem, right? And that's where a lot of people fall short. A lot of men fall short. Like, even so, I'll even say this. I think one of the guys, the first guy, right? I think he in the documentary. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I watched like 30 minutes of it. But the first guy, HK, you know, he does trading. I don't, and I'm not promoting him or anything like that. But if the man's good at what he does, then by all means, you know, he's providing a service, he's adding value, he's helping you make money, whatever. If he's good at what he does, he's legitimate, then by all means. But that's not going to give you value. You could make hundreds of thousands of millions and billions of dollars. It's not going to fill that gap, that hole, that trauma, that support. It's not going to fill that no matter what you do. And that's where the issue lies. You're trying to find the solution for that problem, and their solutions do not solve that problem. Again, they just mask it, putting a Band-Aid on an affected wound and pretending it's fixed and it's better.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable on all this stuff, but even like for that, because a lot of the times the trauma, even for myself, I'll give you a perfect example. The person I try to be back in my day to cover up all my insecurities, my trauma, my validation, all this stuff by being in, you know, getting the attention that I want, because I didn't get it from my parents. I didn't get it from a broken up home. So what do I know? What do people that have trauma at home? They seek attention otherwise. Joining a gang, doing criminal, becoming a drug dealer, being everything else that you want to be, just to suffice the things that you're missing at home. Because even though the things that you have might be going on, and it comes down to one thing, guys, you need to have that guidance from, say, a male figure. This is why it's so important. When I watched that food documentary on and everything else, something at the end that hit me out, but I'm not even, I spoil it for you, because a lot of times it's a persona for that business, right? And I have friends right now that do this and actually, but then when it catches up to you, guess what happens? Because specifically, like, look at Wes Watson. Wes Watson used to be, he's crashing and burning right now as we speak because of that persona he has to catch up to. You got to be assertive. You got to get what's yours. You got to do everything. You got to protect. You're going to have to provide. You're going to have to do all of these things. But the way they go about doing it, and then guess what happens? The ego gets so inflated, because that's what happened to me. Because now nothing can stop you. But then when you talk to billionaires or millionaires that's been through this struggle, they talk a whole different ballgame. And that's where you want to be. Because I just chalk it up as being stages of growing into yourself. And some of the men, like even for us and the kids at Real Talk, they're looking for that same direction. Who are they going to go to when they don't have a male figure?
Yeah.
Explain the difference, Doc. Does is it will anything be meaningful as an adult if they don't kind of like find themselves doing that, or just following that and crashing and burning also in that direction?
Honestly, yeah, it can be meaningful, right? So if you're walking in your purpose, now just because you're walking in your purpose doesn't fill that gap in that hole. But there are a lot of people that are able to stave off the effects of that by walking in their
Mm,
purpose and helping people, right? So
correct.
your value you have is, well, I'm valuable because I help people. And so now imagine if you are being successful in helping people, right? You put the persona on and, I'm this alpha male and all that, and you're making money and you actually are doing good work. Again, like for instance, if I have set up a plan or something like that that can help you make money, right? Because let's not kid ourselves, right? The Bible even says money answers all things. Like, so when you can help someone make money, that helps them to improve their life, right? Or can help them to improve their life. So
Can.
now
Yep.
you have that validation, that social proof that I'm doing good. And because now I'm doing good and adding value, that's how I can kind of stave off the effects, right? So if I am home alone and I am thinking about it, I can stave it off by like, oh man, you're not worth it. You're not worth anything. It's like, yeah, no, but I help all these people. So I must be worth something, right? It doesn't fix the issue or the problem, but because you're walking in what your purpose is, you're adding a lot of value, it can help stave that off, right? Because again, there's that social proof, there's that validation.
Mhm.
Doesn't solve the problem, but you wonder why some people can, it's like, dang, how do you not see it? Well, that's how I don't see it. I don't see it because I'm successful in this thing and I'm helping people, right? And then when we help people, I mean, even in psychology, one of the best ways to overcome depression is to go and help someone who's less fortunate than yourself. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a God built-in program. I don't know, but that they say that. So now you imagine that on a grand scale. If I'm depressed, but I'm helping tens and millions of people, then I'm essentially hacking my natural biology and making sure so I can stave off that feeling, right? Not to mention now you throw in the dopamine hits, right? You're bagging women wherever you go, right? And then you're able to find women like some of the guys we saw in the documentary. Some of these guys, they have a woman who remains monogamous, but they're able to go and sleep with all these other women. So they're getting the woman who plays wife at home, but then they get to go and sleep with whoever they want. And so it's no wonder why you're able to stave off the hurt, the pain, the trauma, the empty hole, because now not
Mm.
only are you being successful, but you're also, having pleasure and things like that. So all of that combined, it masks that pain and it masks that hurt. And
It's
so
masking it.
that's
Ah.
why you're able to see people continue on without actually even processing the old stuff. But
Right, right, right.
unfortunately, that's not a majority of men, right? And that's not a viable path. And there's a lot of men, morally speaking, they can't even bring themselves to do that. So then they're kind
Ooh.
of stuck, right?
Right.
So yeah, that playboy over there is doing everything, and maybe it seems like it works for him, but for a majority of it, it will not work.
So let me ask you this, Doc. I mean, say you don't develop an authentic self or unshakable confidence, but you learn how to build relationships from the mistakes that you've been giving and everything else based on mutual respect for yourself. Is it outdated? Because all of this stemmed from, say, the feminist movement or the red pill, blue pill, all that bullshit stuff, right? Right?
Mm.
How is it that men can actually take that, interpret things the way they want to do, so that it makes it so that they can be confident and have presence in themselves, right?
So wait, ask the question again.
So, like, okay,
Take
say
what?
you like, because I can agree with some of the stuff they say. If I follow Tristan stuff, I might not agree with Myron stuff, but some of the topics that they say is true, right? Because
Yeah.
it's true. Now, how you go about doing that, what direction should I take if I'm falling into that trap or looking for purpose in those messages?
So I guess here's the issue. We were kind of touching on this a little bit. So maybe
Right.
we can broaden this as well. Where we're talking about who's the real problem, right? Is it the
Okay.
Myron Gaines? Is it the Justin Walters? Is it the HKs? Are they the real problem? Is it the Wes Watsons? Are they the real problem? Or is it the people who follow them the real problem? Because as we were saying
Right.
before, if there's no market,
Right.
there's no business. And
Mm-hmm.
the one that sticks out to me the most, if anyone's familiar with Charleston White,
Oh, I
and you
love
might
him.
look at him, and say, "Oh my gosh, he's ignorant." Da 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 da. But he said something that was so freaking profound. He said, "When I was in a suit, in a bow tie, and I was trying to teach you guys things, y'all weren't listening. But the moment I said, 'Yeah, it's okay to beat your woman,' now everyone's ears are all perked up. Now everyone's listening." My question is it really the people? Like, because now he's like, okay, well, if that's what y'all want to hear, if that's what's going to pull y'all in, I'll say reckless things. Sure,
Right.
I'll say women belong in a kitchen. Sure, I'll say women don't deserve to vote. Sure, I'll say all that stuff. I'll say whatever you want to. Yeah, sure, I'll say you sleep with, to be a real man, you'll sleep with whoever you need to sleep with as many women as possible. So when it goes back to how do you decipher that information, for one, do you even want to decipher the information? Or you just want to have your ears tickled. You just want to hear what sounds good and yeah, rah, rah, rah. Because the long story short, and then when you see, because here's the thing, that stuff sells. And I'll be honest, Gordon, I'll be 100% honest, man. There have been times I even considered selling out and being like, yeah, let me just get reckless with my talk, right? Let me just start talking reckless, calling people this, calling people that, right? Getting super controversial. Why not? That's what people want to hear. But again, my morals and values prohibit me from doing so, right? But the fact of the matter is, do people even want to decipher that, right? So the question, Gordon, you were asking is, like, I can look at their stuff and say, okay, I can take the good out of that. I can admire them for doing that. There's something, take the meat,
Yeah.
leave the bone, right? That's what a
it.
mature mind does. That's what a wise mind does. But the first thing is, do we even want to do that? You don't really want to do the deep work. You don't really want to get
Right.
down,
This is where
really, so yeah, I think that's the real question. Do we even really want to do the deep work, or you just want to be entertained? Most people just
Right.
want to be entertained. And since most people want to be entertained and they know that, and that's marketing, right?
Exactly.
They know that. Can we really blame them for selling you what you want? Right? And if you look at like a McDonald's, oh, McDonald's is so horrible. Oh, they're so bad, but you still buy it. You still give it to.
If you're stuck in a victim mentality or you have anger and resentment towards, say, external factors, but you haven't done, like you said, the real work within yourself or ask the real questions about yourself, where it's came from, because I can tell you might have a profound desire of self-efficacy and control over one's life, but then at the same time, you still need some sort of guidance and getting over the trauma that you've dealt with. He put in the work and he does that work for other people, right? Because to have a fulfilling life, you can have any life you desire if you figure it out. Now, from the market, as you said, are you caught in the red pill cycle and blaming external things? Or is it forcing you to struggle in a way to reclaim the power that you've been born with, or you're looking for some sort of validation from society? Because one of the members that said when they came to they said they moved to Florida to get into this. I'm going to make value for myself. I'm going to this, and they end up homeless, right? Like, okay, like, but it made them go through that struggle, and now they're doing okay. Because there's going to be a common denominator. Because when I watch the video, it's like, man, some of the stuff Tristan might be saying, I like. Some of the stuff, in fact, a lot of it I do like, but where do you apply it, right? And then how extreme do you want to go with it? Because if you chasing that alpha mentality, and because I lived it, right? I mean, you only can sleep, you only can have so much money, you only can do so much drugs, you can have only so much power, you can only have things. But if you're using it in the wrong way, but where does that stem from you in the beginning, not dealing with the shit that you had in the past, right? because a lot of the times your past develops to something greater in the future, right? As a little boy, you might be fatherless, you might be poor, you might be looking for something because you didn't get it at home.
Yeah.
And you're going to be seeking that for the rest of your life until you figure this shit out. Now, the red pill movement, the masculine manosphere suffices with that. It's your choice to understand what, like Doc said, take the meat, leave the bone that works for you. What would you recommend, Doc, as to develop a proactive solution and to have an oriented mindset for that situation?
So on the very surface level, when it comes to this whole manosphere and what they preach and things of that nature, let me also say I want not everything I agree with, but some of the things that I agree with, right? As men, you need to work out, right? You shouldn't have
absolutely. You got to get to the.
You need to work out. You got to be a good example of discipline. You always talk about discipline with your children, and accountability and all that stuff like that. You got to take care of yourself first and foremost, right? Men who are single or men who are married or whatever, you got to take care of yourself. That's a thing I think across the board for all these, influencers or manosphere guys. And it's just absolutely true. You must take care of yourself and do not skip leg. Do not skip leg day, right? Yeah. Lift 100%. Heavy, boost testosterone, it's going to boost your self-image. It's going to give you a presence. You need to work out, period, point blank, end of discussion. No matter what trauma you've been through, you got to work out, period, right? You need to strive for your purpose, right? They don't necessarily preach that on the surface, but they do talk about making money. And when you strip that away, it's about adding value, right? Find your purpose, find your ambition, stop looking for women, find your purpose, find your ambition, and go all in on that. Now, if you're adding value, this is just how the world works. The people who add value are the ones that make money. The ones who add value are the ones who make money. So it's easier to make money in your passion, in your purpose, right, than it is to just try to follow something and just try to do it and you're not really all into it. So that's another thing you want to make sure you're taking care of, right? The second, and then the last thing is as far as like being assertive, right? You notice these guys, they are very assertive, sometimes even aggressive to a degree,
Right.
And I will say that something they all say across the board, and even Jordan Peterson says it, you can't be harmless. Someone has to know you can inflict damage.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I'm not saying go out and fight. I'm not saying beat anybody up or anything like that. But if I see a guy who's, 5'10", 230 pounds of solid muscle, that's not someone I want to try, right? Not that he's overly aggressive or anything. He could be the nicest person in the world, but for sure, if it came to it, this man can do some damage. That has to be in your mindset. It's the same principle of if there's a police officer outside somewhere, you're probably not going to rob that place. Why? Because there's a threat there. We should be dangerous. And I'm not saying flexing it, but we should just look and have that look and that appearance, right? Because that also has presence. Like, dang, we're not going to try him, right? Those things across the board, and those are things that they preach or things they talk about. Absolutely, we need to be doing those. We absolutely need to be doing those. There's no reason for us not to be. That's a very base foundation. I'm saying that's not doing any work on trauma. That's not doing any work on not having a father at the home. That's not doing work. I'm not doing any of that work. This is just the basic, bare bones things that we should be doing as men that we can take from the manosphere. Those three things right there, those are things we should be doing just in general as men. 100% stand behind that.
I mean, even like you look at all the people that take kids, right? When they interviewed the person that when they go to the playground and they abduct kids, the first thing the abductor does is they look at who is their threat, right? If you got a father that's going to do something, he's going to protect you, who is he going to take? Right? Who's kid? It's the same thing, right? It's you are like our logo right here in the back, right? Spartan logo. You rather be a killer that has it under control versus a gardener that's going to battle. Yep. Which one do you want to be? Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a story right here. When I was in FCI Lompoc, I broke my leg because I punished somebody in the bathroom, right? So I was on the softball field, guy slid into me. He went to take me out, broke me in half, broke my leg, right? broke my tib fib, shattered my ankle, and everything else.
Jeez.
When I came back from and this is in prison. This is at the FCI, right? So we was at a championship. He slid into me, broke me in half. When I came back, they put me in this thing called K unit. Doc, right next to me, black guy. Right next to my other bunk, another black guy. Gang members, 6'6", 260 pounds, look like Ray Lewis, yoked up NFL football player. He's a shooter. He'll break me in half, right? Mm-hmm. Right next to me, guy named Chuck. He's from Vegas out here. We became good friends. You think about it, Doc. This is where I thought it was going to end, because they could twist my neck right off. But when you go up against somebody like that, because they seen, this is where I gained some sort of notoriety and reputation, because everybody shut up their mouth, did everything. Everything was clean. We handled it. We didn't have a riot on my behalf. Some bullshit, right? Yeah. Because when you look at those things, when you see in certain situations where your life could have turned out, it could have gone all bad right there. If something happened down here, they couldn't save me. I was done.
Yeah.
Right. But fortunately, I got along. And but if I'm thinking to myself, when you said that you might have 5'10", 230, this guy's is 6'6", 260. I'm stabbing him if I have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But would they hear me screaming? I don't know. Because in the meantime, you hear people screaming in the bathroom because people are getting jumped. This is the shit right here. But when you come from that mentality, because now you look at being assertive, you being certain things that you have going on in your life, right? When you come from something like that, nothing out here is going to affect you. And that's the mentality you have to have in your business, with your family, with your protection, being assertive, not being aggressive, but also having, like we said, boundaries. Yeah. Because you got to have boundaries for yourself, so that boundaries is not for the people. It's for you to have discipline, right? Yeah. And that's what Doc preaches all the time. And this, so if you're feeling unfulfilled with certain things, right? If you're feeling and you think being that alpha might be out of your reach, let us help you become some sort of version of that, so that you can protect your family, grow a backbone, be assertive with your communication, and be validated, self-validated for yourself, so that people can gravitate to you instead of you gravitating to other people.
That, again, we as men have to have presence. And listen, they're especially like when it comes to like human trafficking and things like that, gangs and things like that, they don't look for intact families. They look for broken homes. And most broken homes look like what? No father figure, no father present. Why? You answered the question, why do they look for things like that? Because it's easy. There's no protector. There's no one with presence, right? So that's they go and they do that. We as men, we have to make sure, for one, we're there, but for two, we got to have a presence. When I used to work in the school system, things were different when I was there versus when a woman was there. Kids would try less things with me there than they would with the woman there. The ones that got froggy and jumped, I had to put them right back on their lily pad, right? And from that day forward, they were like, oh, shoot. Well, back then it was Mr. Keith, right? Oh, shoot. Mr. Keith is here. Let's cool it, right? I remember one time in the classroom, these kids are trying to go after, these like three boys are trying to go after this girl, right? They were harassing her. She got mad. She said something to them. They wanted to go after her. I put her behind me. I said, listen, which one do you want to get it first? You just let me know, because you're not touching her, right? And so guess what they did? They stopped. Now, granted, this is not grandstand or anything like that, because I also had a relationship with them. So it wasn't just my presence, but it's also the relationship. So it's not all threat. So being dangerous isn't just about, oh, well, I can do damage, but it's also about, I also have a relationship with these people as well. So I think that's important as well. But that's a little bit, that takes having to work through the issues that you had, right? That's that other component, right? Because now I can be dangerous, but because now I have a presence, I can now also speak to the person that I used to be that's in you. The one that's jumping up and getting all mad and getting all frustrated, whatever the case may be, I can be like, whoa, brother, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? Gets him to slow down. And now we can actually engage in a conversation. This is iron sharpening iron. This is a man to man. This is how this is supposed to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not assertive, if you have no presence, if you look weak, if you are weak, if you let people run all over you, then guess what you can't do? You can't protect anybody, and you can't change anybody.
Definitely.
Because now this guy, what he's going to say, he's going to push you down, push you out the way, talk to you any kind of way, and then guess what? He's going to keep doing what he's going to do. So there's no change there. And then now all we're going to do is complain and talk about how bad and how mean that other guy is. But we're not going to talk about how, because we aren't the men we're supposed to be, we couldn't be and actually speak in this man's life, because it's a strong possibility that if someone would have spoken this man's life, it could have changed his life.
God, like when me and my wife started dating and stuff like that, right? So I told her specifically because even like when she's a flight attendant and stuff like that, she gets hit on all the time from other flight attendants. But even at the hotel, when we first started dating, I said, this is what's going to happen. I explained it to her. Once they find out, everybody's going to change their attitude towards you. She goes, no, nothing's going to happen. Guess what happened, Doc? She lost friends, male friends, because I told her what's going to happen, because it's not that they might be fear me, but it's a matter of both respect, fear, what I'm capable of. And like how you have lionesses and lions in Africa and stuff, like you claim what is yours in a sense. It doesn't have to be hardcore, but that's what happens, right? Even like for some of her male friends that, I had a few that, then once they come out and meet me, now they ask her, how's Gordon doing? That's the difference. Instead of trying to sleep with her or trying to get this and blah, 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 right? But that's the type of presence you need to have in this game. It's not being an asshole about it all. You want to be able to command it all so that when it's capable, you can show. But then do you keep it dormant, or do you always be just flamboyant about it, especially with social media? I don't think so. If my younger me wasn't social media times like they do now, I don't know if I would survive. I'd probably be in prison more. I'd probably still be in there. But let me ask you this, Doc, right? What's the price of the red pill movement, you think, versus not finding out yourself? Like, I agree with some of the stuff, like you, me and you both agree. Some of the stuff is really cool. I believe in some of that. But where do you draw the line of the manosphere?
Where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
Honestly, unless you're a mature man, I don't know if you really need to be in the manosphere, to be honest.
True. Okay.
Yeah. If you're not a mature man, you don't need to be in the manosphere, right? Because then you take what they say very literally, very, very literally. Correct. And you don't and then you stop thinking for yourself, right? The manosphere requires you to think for yourself. That's the whole idea. Escape from the matrix, right? Escape from the programming.
Yes.
It's not change programming. It's to escape from the programming. Like that's the underlying current behind all that, which I can get with, right? Because a lot of men have been feminized over the years.
Exactly. I was just about to say,
You got so many men coming from single mother homes. You have so many, we're essentially for 13 years out of our life, we're raised by women, right? In school, because a majority of teachers are women. A majority of school staff are women. And so that without that presence, again, you're not going to know how to handle, right? You're going to go to the furthest extreme and like, yeah, F women, da. And it's like, bro, well, no. I would say as far as that's concerned, where do you draw the line? I would draw the line if you can't think critically, you don't need to be dealing with that stuff at all, right? That's got to be like the number one thing, because you got to be able to listen. If you're in whatever information you're listening to, you have to listen to it and understand, what you're listening to. And again, learn to take the meat and leave the bone. Even the Bible says, and I hope I'm not taking it out of context, but when Paul was talking to Timothy, he said, study to show thyself approved, right? And so are you doing studies on your own? What kind of work are you doing on your own? Or are you just waiting for someone to kind of spoon feed you, and you just want to keep your mouth open as someone spoon feeds you? And so no matter how alpha you think you are, if you can't think for yourself, you're just waiting for someone to spoon feed you. If you're not doing research on your own, yeah, then yeah, you have no business being in that space. Because the one
Correct.
thing I can say about all of those guys, they are free thinkers. They're thinking for
You need
themselves.
that.
You're
Yeah.
right. They have things set up, because that's why, going like you were saying, and we were talking about a little bit earlier, they have a persona, right? They have a persona, but behind closed doors, it's different. The one guy, HK, I mean, think about it. He was saying the stuff I'm saying here, I would never say in front of my mom. Why not? Right? Because this is a persona. I still love and respect my mom, and I wouldn't allow that to happen and those things to happen around. But so, and I mean, granted, some people might say, "Oh, well, you're supposed to be, coherent across the board, and blah blah blah, whatever, whatever." Yeah, I get it. But what I'm
Right.
saying is, the question is, where do you draw the line? You draw the line at your ability to think critically. If you cannot think critically, you got some work to do. You shouldn't be taking any of this information in. You need to be able to sit there and think through it and be like, and I'll say this, Gordon, this is across the board
Board.
with
Absolutely.
everything,
100%.
not just the
100%.
manosphere, your faith, your finances,
Everything. Everything.
think critically. How can you be a leader if you're not thinking critically? How can you step into that role and lead anybody if you can't even lead yourself? You're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, tell you what to think, tell you what to feel. So you got to be able to think critically. That's where I would draw the line. If you can't think critically, you have no business dealing with any red pill movement, manosphere, anything else. You need to stop, go back, reevaluate, and start doing some work on your own, reading some books, meditating, whatever you got to do to free your mind so you could actually take the information in, think about
And
it, tear
apply
it
it.
apart,
Use it.
and see what's good and see what's bad.
100%. I agree
Yeah.
with all of that. But if you can't think for yourself and you're just a follower, you're just into that stuff. And you're going to be shelling out all that money. You're going to be losing that money. You're going to be using the money and you're going to say, what happened? Then you're going to be a victim mode again and be like, oh, these guys directed me this, but I didn't make the money I was promised. Because at the end of the day, it's a business. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? They're playing because I have friends, right? People I help, right? That do the exact same thing. I've done it in the past. And I'll get all in with this story, right? Going back to being not just red pill, alpha male, beta thing, whatever it is, it doesn't matter because you still have to be you at the end of the day, also. And at the end of the day, like Doc said, you got to work out. I'll tell you a story of mine because the doc said if when I fell into the cab head first, he said if I wasn't built the way I was built, I break my neck. And he said, you're just lucky you're still moving around the way you are. And even like when my doc says like it's like the thing that I'm going through now, right? It's like you don't feel no pain from your gallbladder. I said, no. I'm like, what about that? I said, you gotta think, guys. I drove myself when my appendix broke because I was thinking something was wrong. I could sleep it off. I just drove myself there. Fuck it, right? Because, but it's like that's the most pain I had in that night. I have a high tolerance of pain. But back to the question, right? If you're ready to stop blaming and start building, you mean, and work with us, right? Whether you want to do deep work, trauma work, personal development, coaching, business, things that you never saw from a different angles. Go to assessment.boundaries and brotherhood and take the assessment. Me or Doc will reach out so that we can figure out where you sit in all of this, what dream outcome you want. Because you might, the dream outcome you want might be different from somebody that's watching this right now. Somebody that wants to work with how to become a better person for their family might be different for becoming a better person, a better manager for their career. It's two different things, but it's almost similar because we want to build a proactive base approach so that you can have agency within yourself, right? Because this way you have Doc, you have myself, you have Carrie, you have other things coming from different angles that can just not so you don't follow the full manosphere, but to follow things that you can take and you make your own conclusive decision so that you don't fall into the self trap of pity and undo yourself.
Yeah.
Doc, let me ask you this. Is there an unseen power of empathy with yourself and forgiving yourself when doing something like this?
Doing something like what?
Like working with us or being a part of the brotherhood or asserting boundaries, or unlocking your transformative potential by working with us? What
So
would be some promises?
So as far as that's concerned, for one, be fully integrated, right? You talk about alpha,
Beautiful.
beta, all that, whatever. I always liken it to like this. You work with us, we can get you to a spot where you're like Iron Man when he's sitting in the middle of that room and he's just directing all these things, right? He's moving things around and, issuing commands to Friday and things like that. I want you to think of that like, but except like that's your life. That's your mind. Those are your feelings. Those are your emotions. Imagine
Ooh,
being able to be regulated at all times. Imagine to be able to make clear, decisive decisions. Imagine to be able to shake off rejection like it's nothing, right? Imagine to be able to know your value and your worth and not, try to placate somebody and live a people pleasing life. Imagine where you can just say no and then that's it. Imagine having presence. Imagine being able to have presence and not say an absolute word. It's simply because you're there, right? And you don't
love
got
it.
to be 6'10" to have it, And so those are the promises, right? That's what we can also we have to offer you, right? And then the beautiful thing about it is it translates to every other area of your life. Because once you can master yourself, everything else comes easy. Relationships come easy, making money comes easy, your health comes easy, setting up being disciplined comes easy. It comes very, very, very easy. I often, and I've been to a couple of like different like workshops and I've been to conferences and things like that where, I'm there and I'm listening to people and I, at first I feel bad. Like I don't have any questions. Like if Dr. Thompson's on the line, I don't got no questions.
Mm,
I don't have no questions because I've done the work already. I've already mastered myself.
that's the best part.
I just go and look it up. I go and search it. I'm not waiting for a guru, right? I just go do it. So, but this is what it looks like when you master your own life, right? You don't wait for someone to come save you. You don't wait for Superman. You become Superman for yourself, right? You're able to recognize when maybe you're playing too small. Hey, this is on me, right?
Yep.
I need to step it up. It's all these women or it's the government or it's this person. No, this is me. This is the control I have. And I'm not going to let anyone dictate my life. That's the mindset. So if I'm falling short, if I'm not making the money I want, if I'm not having the influence I want, then that's on me. It's something I'm not doing. And so then I'm starting to look and say, okay, what do I need to do to make sure I have that same impact? And that's what we have to offer, where you stop waiting for someone else to save you, because the goal is not to keep you on the hook forever. The goal is to create the man, to help you recognize the man that you already are, and for you to walk in that, to have full control and autonomy and agency within your own life. That's what you're
Beautiful.
looking for, right? And we can help you get there,
Yes,
right? We
yes,
can
yes.
absolutely help you get there. That's
Beautiful.
what we're pushing. That's our message, helping you become the man that God designed you to be from the very, very beginning.
That's a perfect ending, guys. So if you're looking for camaraderie, you're looking for a network of support, if you're looking for a network of men that want to do business, presence, cultivate something, relationship building, and experience the power of shared growth and success, I'm going to be leaving a subscription here or the next video right out here. And so you can overcome isolation and go, guys, if you're watching this on TikTok, head on over to Boundaries and Brotherhood on the YouTube channel, share that subscription link, give it to somebody that might need something. And a word from our sponsor, guys, first ever espresso lollipop samples are going out this week. We are launching in May. If you see an alert pop guy or like a mascot, that'll be me in the streets of Las Vegas pretty soon giving these things out. You're gonna see me on every corner. If you see a like this guy, a foam guy, it's gonna be me. Guys, end the show, please.
We appreciate you guys being here. If you need help, you reach out. You have our information down here on the ticker right here to take the assessment, see where you are, how we can help you, how we can work together to get you to become the man that you're supposed to be, right? To be able to navigate this whole manosphere thing and not get sucked in to the parts that don't align with who you are, but to take the parts that we need to be taken in and activate and operate based out of those things, so we can become the leaders, providers, and protectors that we're supposed to be. So We can help you get there. But y'all take care. Have a great and blessed week. I think we'll come back next week. Gordon, we got the workshop next week, right?
Free workshop
Y'all
next week.
definitely stay set. Mm-hmm.
And if you want to have some female guidance, we have Carrie tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And we'll see you guys next week.
Y'all take care.